Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube rookie mock draft, pre-NFL draft. The NFL draft is right around the corner, and there's no better time to prepare and get yourself ready than a pre-NFL draft rookie mock draft for 2020. It's important this time of year to do something like this to know where these players stand on their talent alone. As the NFL draft comes and these players finally find a new home, that's really going to solidify this class. Definitely a class that's so large and so talented where we're going to need NFL teams to kind of break that tier break. I am Rich Dotson with DynastyNerds.com, here with my fellow nerds, Nick Whalen.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Garret Price.
How you doing?
And Matt O'Hara.
Hey, what's up?
So this mock draft was conducted with the Dynasty Nerds staff. The four of us did make a selection. We're going to be covering the first round of a draft here. We'll do a new one next week after the NFL draft and cover 2 rounds. But here we are today covering the first round of the pick. Now, to start this with a class that is so deep, and usually there's a lot of people that can agree on a lot of players where they're ranked. This year is definitely different when it comes to that class. The top 24 is going to look drastically different by every analyst that you talk to or you see online or social media. And it starts from the first pick to the 24th pick. I know Matt's number 2 receiver is not the same number 2 receiver as most of us here. So let's start. I was lucky enough to have the first pick in this draft, and we'll get there.
So lucky.
Yeah, real luck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a job to do, and I did them. So here we are today. I want to talk about the first pick. Who is our number 1 pick in this class? This is a pick you cannot mess up because this class is super talented. And the last thing you want to do with your choice of any player that you want is to pick the dud, right? It's like one of those jelly beans that all have the great flavors, and one of them tastes like a fart. You do not want the fart, okay? So my number 1 in this draft class is DeAndre Swift. It's very close between him and J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. Nick, who is your number 1 rookie in this 2020 class today as it stands?
Right now, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor, so I'm not going to go either of your two. And to me, he's the best pure runner. And the hands thing, I'm not sure he's going to catch 60-plus receptions of what Swift could do. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire can catch 60. I'm not sure Dobbins will get there, but he doesn't have that floor. But I think he's the guy that could be running for 1,200 yards every single year.
Okay. Garret Price, your number 1 rookie in this 2020 class is?
J.K. Dobbins for me. I have no real issue with anybody saying Taylor or DeAndre Swift. For me, it's I think Dobbins is the most landing spot proof of all of them. And so if I have to take a guy pre-draft, he's the safest one for me that I think will hit.
I like it. I could easily go Dobbins. I'm going to let Dobbins – we'll talk about it here in a second. So, Matt O'Hara, who is your number 1 player in this draft? Can you be the tiebreaker between us 3 stooges here? Because we have 3 different players here at 1. Matt, you're the tiebreaker. You're going to tell us who the real number 1 player in this draft class is.
Well, it's DeAndre Swift, in my opinion. I mean, and I know that makes you happy. I can already see your smile starting to creep up a little higher there.
New.
Matching shirts, too. We got matching shirts, too, so it's clear as day.
Look at that. So, yeah, I mean, this guy's – he's got everything. He's got the lateral agility. He's got the size to be the 3-down type of back, and he catches passes really naturally out of the backfield. So all that, I think, makes him, in my opinion, the most landing spot, I guess, independent player because he can go anywhere and succeed and be that 3-down back.
So there you have it. 2 for Swift, 1 for Taylor, 1 for J.K. Dobbins. I agree with what Garrett's statement was. I'm not going to argue any player here going 1 overall. I wouldn't even argue CeeDee Lamb going 1 overall. Personally, I was the first on the clock, and I did take DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia, 5'8", 212 pounds, ran a 4.48 40, coming off a year of 196 touches for 1,218 yards, good for 6.2 yards per carry. Like Matt said, he's good in the passing game as well, bringing in 24 catches for 216 yards and a touchdown. And he dealt with a shoulder injury this year as well. For me, I have J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift so close in my rankings. The NFL draft will decide that overall standing. If Swift lands in Miami and say J.K. Dobbins lands with the Bucs, I would probably then switch them and put Dobbins as my 1-1. But I feel very comfortable with Swift as my 1 because everything that he does, besides being a pile mover, he does very well. When he gets out in the open field and he flashes that leg to the outside and jukes these defenders, it's a beautiful thing. He's like Walter Payton out there, how he can consistently just plant his leg and go. and move that defender. It's just stunningly beautiful to me. He's always getting those extra couple of yards. And despite his size, he takes contact as well. So even though he's 5'8", he can take contact. Very good receiver, very good in pass protection too, which is going to get him on the field and for all 3 downs. This is a running back who I don't know if he could ever be Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey with that kind of running back, but for years, a running back 1. And when I say I want to get a player here at 1 that I can't miss, I feel like DeAndre Swift is a can't miss product. Nick, what do you think of that?
Can we add on one other thing? His dad has the biggest guns of any dad in this first round, I think. Have you seen his dad?
No, I have not seen his dad.
Oh, his dad's
you
massive.
haven't? No. Gun show like bodybuilder. It's insane. So he's got that too. So don't say anything bad about him. His dad's going to come after you.
Oh my goodness. Is anybody?
You guys got to Google that.
DeAndre Swift's dad, a big fan of the Second Amendment, apparently. So does anybody
natural?
Does anybody hate this pick? If anybody sits in here, when anybody sit here and go, guys, what are you doing? You can't take DeAndre Swift 1. That's just a bad decision here. Does anybody hate the pick?
My biggest concern with him is touches, because I think he could get Alvin Kamara in the NFL potentially, where he gets 50, 60 receptions and then his carries to be limited. But that's my only concern with him, because he's not an elite athlete. I don't think he has the upside to be a top 5 fantasy back. But like you said, low end RB1 to RB2, I think that's where he's going to live.
Yeah, same thing. You could argue, Nick, that Alvin Kamara is not the best running back in the NFL when it comes from a skill set, right, or overall talent. But when it comes to fantasy football, he's a top 5 guy that you want on your roster. And that's how we got to judge these guys. It's not about when I talk about I'm not a big Derrick Henry fan, it's because he's touchdown dependent. He's not going to catch a lot of football. So that's going to limit his fantasy production. So these guys, when I look at them, and we're going to bring these rankings to you, it's always going to be from a fantasy football perspective. So I understand that as well, because, again, if we're doing a standard league, I'd take Jonathan Taylor 1-1. Like you mentioned, he's a 1,200-yard rusher, real smooth with the ball in his hands. And it just so happens the next guy on the clock was our friend Jared Wackerly, and he did take Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin, 5'10", 226 pounds. And at that size, he ran a 4.39 40. So we don't have to wonder if he's fast, because that was the fastest time amongst running backs at the combine. Even at a 7.013 cone, which is pretty fluid for a guy of his size. We all know Jonathan Taylor is a guy that came off back-to-back years of 2,000 rushing yards, which is unbelievable. The Doak Walker Award winner, averaging 6.3 yards per carry with 2,003 yards and 21 touchdowns on the year. I'm going to turn this over to Nick, because Nick said this was who he'd take number 1 overall. Nick, tell us some things why Jonathan Taylor is a great pick here at 1-2.
Oh, I think that he gets underrated in terms of his ability to make somebody miss as well. And we've highlighted this on the film nerds when we compared him to some other backs, because I think people think of him with speed and power, but he's also nimble. You have to have the feet to be able to navigate through holes and get small and get through the trash, and he does all that kind of stuff. People think of Wisconsin, think of these huge and amazing offensive lines, and I think that their line wasn't as great these last few years as it has been. And I think that his skill set has really risen up and made them look better. And they don't throw the ball a ton there. That. So he's a marked guy. They're stacked boxes, but still he got it done. And even against Ohio State, and I said it.
The second time, not the first time around. Not the first time around. See, my thing with Taylor is, could I see a scenario where he gets taken by the Colts? He gets taken by the Niners. He gets taken in a good system, running some of that outside zone scheme, where he can plant his foot, good offensive line, get upfield and go and rush for. The dude could rush for 1,600 yards, and that would not surprise me one bit as a rookie. My concern is we're doing this before the NFL draft. I'm concerned about some of his ability behind the line of scrimmage to be able to be enough of a creator to be able to overcome poor offensive line play. And he's very much a guy that sticks with the plan, which is not a bad thing. Adrian Peterson is very much so that type of player where he sticks with the scheme. He's going to run where the play is called, and he's going to make it happen. And so I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he follows his blocks and, does that to a T. I'm just concerned if he doesn't get the right landing spot overall, that he might not have the upside of some of these other players.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, when I said here at the top of the draft, when you're picking this high in this draft, you want to make sure you get a can't miss product. And I like Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to have a successful NFL career, and I like him. But when I'm looking at some of these players, I'm trying to limit as many red flags as possible. When we're talking about these top 3 running backs, Jonathan Taylor has the most red flags. Like Garrett said, he's not as elusive, doesn't have enough wiggle, definitely behind the line of scrimmage. But we can't overlook, I'm not worried about all the carries he got. Having over 300 carries the last 3 seasons, had 968 touches. The number one concern with me is Jonathan Taylor is his fumbles. This is a guy who fumbled 18 times and lost 15 of them, losing 5 in 2019 alone. I mean, this is, when you're talking about consistency, one thing Jonathan Taylor did consistent was fumble. I mean, 2017, he had 8 fumbles. 2018, he had 4 fumbles. In 2019, he had 6 fumbles. I remember watching some tape this year, and there's one fumble he had where he had 2 in a game. He lost 1 ball without anybody touching him. So that's one thing he's got to fix. He does like a little bit of wiggle. I'm not overly concerned about his pass catching ability because he did catch the ball well at his pro day. And we've seen Wisconsin running backs that did not catch a lot of balls like James White and Melvin Gordon come into the NFL and have success there. So I'm not going to rule that factor out there too. Let's see where he lands and if he could be schemed into that. Matt, what do you think of Jonathan Taylor here at number 2? Because I know he's not your number 2 running back either. What do you think about this pick here?
I mean, for me, obviously, this is a little bit early for him, but I wouldn't pan anyone for picking any one of these guys. It's kind of a pick your poison. I mean, like Nick said, he does so many things well, and he's so big, so fast. I think he's nimble enough at that size that he can operate. But I think these other 2 guys, the DeAndre Swifts and the J.K. Dobbins, who we're going to get to, they're more elusive. They're more loose in their hips. He's a little bit tighter to me. In all that kind of area. So that's something I like in my running backs, an ability to really be loose and wiggle a little bit through those holes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. If you can't do the salsa, you're going to drop down Matt's board, and that's okay. Some of us are not meant to dance. Let's move on with the next pick. Dr. Mitchell was on the clock of Dynasty Nerds, and he took J.K. Dobbins, which is a great pick in my eyes here. Out of Ohio State, 5'9", 209 yards, 209 pounds. Had 301 carries for 2,003 yards, 21 touchdowns, good for 6.7 yards per carry, and also brought in 23 receptions for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is, again, somebody who I love, Matt loves. Nick, you like J.K. Dobbins, right?
Not really. Not as much as you guys.
Okay. Well, then let's pump the brakes here. We'll let Garrett tell us who this is his 1-1. Garrett, tell us why this is a great pick, and then we'll tell Nick why you're right. We'll still listen. We know you're right, but we'll listen to Nick and why he's wrong.
No, I love J.K. Dobbins. And if anything, over the course of this, I actually, for the longest time, I do a lot of Devy stuff. I actually had him like way down in my rankings because I was trying my very best not to have the Ohio State bias. It's easy when you watch a team consistently, you root for a team consistently, that you want to try to make sure that you're trying to be as impartial as possible. And it got to the point where, especially later on in the season, as we saw things go and develop, that it was just the raw ability was undeniable. His ability to be able to stop and go, his ability to be able to move side to side, whether it's a small cut or a big cut. Some of these guys you'll see, we just talked about Jonathan Taylor. He is really good. He's almost like a luge at times where he's, just little cuts here, little cuts there. Dobbins can do that, but he can also do that ankle breaking type stuff as well. And so there's so much ability in the open field. He's a very good pass catcher overall. I'm not saying he's on, CEH's level or anything like that, but he is very good at that. He's going to be a 3-down back at the next level, has enough size, enough grit. And we saw him in the open field be able to finish off plays. And, we see this out of some of the running backs where at times they'll just they kind of give up a little bit. I see that out of DeAndre Swift sometimes where he gets in the open field and either he gives up a little bit and runs out of bounds, or he just kind of loses track and doesn't really know what to do. And, what could have been a 60, 70-yard gain ends up just being a 20-yard gain. He's really good at being able to finish off plays. And so overall, I think, he might not have quite the ceiling that Taylor has in the right offense or Swift has in the right offense. But I think as far as making sure that you hit, I have no concerns with J.K. Dobbins hitting in the first round.
Yeah, his cut ability is unreal. The way his vision and the way how quickly he processes information out behind the line of scrimmage is great. Like you said, the way he can juke. I mean, this guy can go from being north, south to east, west in a second. And there's times you could freeze frame his frames, and he's like the Matrix where he's sideways. And I know you want to stay away from that information about, the bias, because being an Ohio guy, I don't want to pick an Ohio State guy like Nick living in Wisconsin and picking Jonathan Taylor as his number 1 guy. We don't want to do stuff like that. So, Nick, Why is Garrett wrong here? What don't you like about J.K. Dobbins? Warn the masses here. Bring in the people that agree with you here. Why J.K. Dobbins isn't the pick here.
Well, I think I didn't take the red pill if we're just going to start off right away. To me, Dobbins is a good player. I don't see a great player. I don't see special. I don't see elite in any area. And to me, if we're going to pick a high running back, you have to have some kind of a ceiling there. I think he has a high floor in this class, but he improved a lot from 2018 to 2019. 2.1 yards per carry, I believe. And you go from 2018, you had a quarterback that threw 50 touchdowns, Dwayne Haskins, and tons of receivers all over the place. And, Paris Campbell threatened defenses, et cetera. And he jumped up so much in yards per carry. And what could that be? Well, now he has a running quarterback. And you could see that against Clemson, where DNs and defenses had to commit one or two defenders, and there was huge rushing lanes. I think that he got aided a lot by offensive line play and scheme, and he didn't compete at the combine. And why is that? I don't think his speed is there. I think that people really look at poor defensive play, and they think that he could be this really good athlete. I know we've all seen the board at Ohio State, and like he ran some 4.3 whatever. And I don't believe it at all, because in one of those plays, you can see Isaiah Simmons, who ran a 4.44, I believe.
4.39. He's
chasing him down. So if he ran this 4.3 whatever, Isaiah Simmons shouldn't chase him down from 15 yards away on one of those touchdowns. And he started from a long ways away. And so to me, I think Dobbins is probably a 4 or 5 guy. I think that his floor is high. His ceiling is low. He lacks power. I think that he got aided a lot. And I'm not sure, you talked about agility. I think he has this really nice sidestep, really, really lateral. But other times I'm expecting him to make a guy miss or break a tackle. I didn't really see it there. I don't know what his forte is besides just being good at a lot of areas.
Yeah, and that's I understand the argument there. And you hear a lot of that too about the 2018, 2019. And you can say that about, honestly, a lot of players in this class. The reason this class is so deep, a lot of players did take a big step up from 2018 to 2019. Some regressed, like Anthony McFarland. Some have regressed in 2019. The one thing I think for J.K. Dobbins that kind of tips the scales to offset that is the way he does move behind the line of scrimmage. So when he does have the ball in his hands, he can create on his own. And at the next level, we're looking for players that can create, because every time they create and get that extra yards, I'm getting more fantasy points for that, and that's what I'm looking for. So where do you have J.K. Dobbins overall amongst your running backs, Nick? Let me ask you that. Amongst this class, which is pretty strong at the top end of the running backs, where does J.K. Dobbins lie for you?
Yeah, and so and that's the thing is when we say, elite and good and floor and ceiling, I think ranking is important because we might be not that far off. He's running back 4 for me. And if we want to make a comp, I have 2. I always like to make 2 within my reports. And one is I see him as a better Devin Singletary, who I think is good at a lot of things. And obviously he's a better athlete than Singletary. So a better version of him. 2, and I know people are going to slate this. I always make a comparison to a guy coming out of college. And I think he's like a Giovanni Bernard, same size, good pass catcher, nimble, can make guys miss, had a little bit of power. So somewhere in that area.
Yeah, and Gio was a pretty high draft pick. If you go back to his rookie draft, I mean, he was getting drafted ahead of guys like Le'Veon Bell in rookie drafts just because he was such a high draft capital over there. Matt, do you have anything you want to chime in here about J.K. Dobbins before we move on?
I mean, I think I covered most of it when I was talking about the Jonathan Taylor stuff.
Got it.
I don't have much to add.
Okay. So looking here for the next pick here on the clock was Jerry Jeudy by Jordan Rains, wide receiver out of Alabama. Not last year, but 2018 won the Biletnikoff Award. 6'1", 193 pounds, ran a 4.45 40. You're not going to find a better route runner in this class than Jerry Jeudy. He's a very pristine route runner. Really good speed, good with the ball in his hands as well. Really loose hips, can change direction on his dime. His routes were always crisp. This is a guy who can get separation on his own. Now, if you watch the Dynasty Nerds film study on this, the biggest takeaway here is he does play a little soft. He's not an aggressive player and avoids that contact pretty much at all the time. This guy does not like contact. So much so that Matt has actually moved him down his board. This is not Matt O'Hara's number 2 receiver at all. So we're going to go to Matt second after this to explain why he's not his number 2 receiver. First, let me ask you this. Is this anybody's number 1 receiver in this class when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football? Anybody?
Definitely not mine, no.
Does anybody not have CeeDee Lamb as their number 1 receiver in this class? So obviously we all agree this was a bad pick by Jordan Rains. He should have taken CeeDee Lamb. Jordan, we might have to demote you on down the Dynasty Nerds staff for this pick, but I also understand it. This was a guy, if we go back 7 months ago, he was being talked about where this guy could be the 1-1 in this class. And my have the mighty fallen, because when you do dig into the tape, you do see some weaknesses here. You do see some alligator arms. You don't see that dog that you see in CeeDee Lamb. But can I get one of you guys to sit here and talk up Jerry Jeudy, why he's going to be so – because he's still in tier 1 for me personally, and I think he's going to be a great dynasty asset. And I think the big thing even though he plays a little soft, I think he will score a lot of fantasy points with his route runner, kind of like that Amari Cooper, essentially. So if you like that Amari Cooper, you can get that in a Jerry Jeudy. Garrett, can you give us a little bit of love on Jerry Jeudy, please?
Yeah, if I'm playing the Jerry Jeudy optimist, you already highlighted the best point about Jerry Jeudy is he is an absolute elite route runner. And with that, even though that is a very special quality, what it translates to is much more significant, and it's causing separation. And that's what he's a master of is being able to create that gap between him and the defender to be able to more easily, more readily catch the ball. It's wider passing lanes for his quarterback to get to him. And he's also got very good speed. I think he ran a 4.45 at the combine. So he's got very good speed on top of that. And the way that, when we talk about guys either earlier that are stiff or, have loose hips, you're not going to find somebody that has looser hips that is more flexible than Jerry Jeudy. The way that he is able to get down so low in his cuts and in his breaks, that's why often he's creating so much separation. And so if you need a guy to get open, he is very, very difficult to cover. So there is easily a path for him to becoming a legit top-end alpha dog type wide receiver. I share some of the same concerns, and he's kind of moved into a second tier of receivers for me. Overall, I'm not like a gushing Jerry Jeudy fan, but if you want to talk about the optimistic side, there's definitely one there for Jerry Jeudy. And by all reports, dude is a crazy, crazy hard worker. He eats, sleeps, breathes football. Some guys like football, they maybe even love football, but this is like his absolute passion. And so if I'm going to bet on somebody to find the areas that he is not good in and improve, Jerry Jeudy's that type of guy.
Yeah, he's a fantastic. Sometimes when you say something like, "Oh, I have Jonathan Taylor as my third running back," that does not say I don't like Jonathan Taylor, but we have to rank these people. When you're on the clock, you don't get to take them all, right? You got to make one selection. So who are you taking? Now, Matt, you have moved Jerry Jeudy down your board as recently as this week. Matt,
Absolutely.
Tell us the guy first who you bumped him for.
Well, first of all, I put Justin Jefferson above him.
Stay tuned for some Justin Jefferson love later from Matt O'Hara. Matt, tell us why you moved Jerry Jeudy down. Tell these people why, if they're on the clock here, don't make the same mistake Jordan made and take CeeDee Lamb. Tell them why they should do that.
Well, I mean, the most important thing is, and I think it was a great point that you made, Rich. I'm bumping him down, but it's not like I hate the guy. You know what I mean? But in order to maintain the spot where he was at, I was seeing some stuff that I didn't like, and you had mentioned what it was, right off the top when we were talking about him. He just doesn't have enough dog. He looks very timid whenever there's any kind of contact, even to the point where I watched him on running plays where he just was like getting out of guys' way and stuff and that just kind of put me off a little bit. For me to have a guy he's a slot guy. I mean, he played like 60% of the plays out of the slot. To just not be tough enough to go over the middle, it limits him somewhat. And I mean, obviously in the NFL, he could flourish on the outside, and that's probably where he's going to end up being. But there are going to be times when, especially in the NFL, those DBs are going to get physical with him, especially if they see what I've seen on tape, that he doesn't like it and that's not his thing. They're going to become more physical with him. So until he proves that he can up his game in that level, maybe get a little bit stronger, not get beat up so much there, going over the middle and stuff like that, he's gonna get a slight knock from me.
Yeah.
So that's why I bumped him down. Just have to go ahead. Go ahead, Nick, after you.
Well, the question I have is, so if you're knocking Jeudy for being a slot guy, for having alligator arms, not being tough, going over the middle, how does Justin Jefferson go over him? That's the same thing I have as issues with Justin Jefferson.
Whoa.
Thank you for coming in here, Nick. We had a huge debate about this on the pod the other night.
Justin
it's so
Jefferson,
good to have an ally.
Justin
Thank you so much, Nick.
Is a dog. That guy will go up. Get it. Justin Jefferson had the highest contested rate catch in this whole entire class. Matt, what was that percentage of contested catches he caught?
It was in the high
92,
90s.
Matt.
Yeah,
it was 92%.
92.
It was 92%.
His receptions were contested?
Yes.
Contested catches, 92%.
That's a loose rating of contested, in my opinion.
We'll talk about Justin Jefferson when we get here, guys.
We will. I'll give my point of view on it. I had to stand alone on this, Nick, so it's good to have an ally in this one.
Garrett, you're my boy, Blue.
And you got to be careful, too, in the NFL. Like Matt said, when you get to the NFL and you get to the next level, there's a lot of Olivia Newton-Johns. Everybody's going to be getting physical out there. So you got to step it up. KJ Hamler, beware. Next guy on the clock here, we have Dom FFL on the clock, and he makes a fantastic choice here. At 1.5, he selects CeeDee Lamb, which I think is the best value out of this first round because this is somebody who I said to begin the podcast, I'm okay if your team's been in the dumper for a couple of years and you've been loading up on these running backs and you got Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Joe Mixon, and you need that receiver. Obviously, you should trade back a couple picks because this class is so deep, but I have no problem with CeeDee Lamb here. This guy profiles to a true number one receiver in my eyes. He's 6'2", 198 pounds, ran a 4.5 40 out of Oklahoma. Coming off a year, we had 62 catches, 1,327 yards, and 14 touchdowns. His 21.4 yards per catch led all of college football last year. He has the size, the speed of a number one. And this guy, when we say dog, he is a dog with the ball in his hands because he is good after the catch. 1,520 of his 3,292 yards came after the catch per Pro Football Focus, which led all college football wide receivers. 6.1 yards after the catch. He tracks the ball good. He makes good adjustments in the air. He dominates the sideline and high points the ball. He's aggressive. His routes are clean, and he's effective on all three levels of the field. I love CeeDee Lamb. I think this guy can be, and not only just a wide receiver one, but when we're looking down here at 2022 in the same tier of where we're looking at now, the Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, that tier. So I look at CeeDee Lamb as being a great prospect here. Matt O'Hara, tell us, I know you didn't like Jerry Jeudy, but tell us why you love CeeDee Lamb.
I love CeeDee Lamb. It's the little things that I mean, he's a very good route runner and he's quick in and out of his breaks. He's really smooth. But it's the yards after the catch that I really love about this guy. He can create and break tackles and is really just a big play threat at any time. So those are the biggest things that I like about him. But it's the run after the catch stuff. That's his biggest asset.
Well, don't let that microphone take advantage of you, Matt. You got to be safe, you know. It's social distance.
Exactly. It snuck up on me.
Does anybody got anything to kind of take CeeDee Lamb down a notch? Nick, I saw you kind of give a look there. So it looks like you have something to say. I'm sure you like CeeDee Lamb. You said he was just number one receiver too, but I don't feel like you, when I say, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, you want to be like, hey, pump those brakes, Fred Flintstone.
No, I like Lamb. There's just some things. One, I'm going to say this is a bonus asset for him. Jalen Hurts wasn't good, as much as that system's fantastic. I mean, Lamb put up some crazy good numbers and Hurts missed him a lot and didn't put him in advantageous positions a lot. So that's one thing. But I saw Lamb taking some routes off, not going hard all the time. And the one thing about Jeudy I was going to talk about too, I think both of them, they play up to their speed when there's other players that I don't think use all of their assets on the field. And so I know, Lamb's not going to be blistering with his speed, but he uses as much as it is. That's why it looks like Jeudy runs faster than 4.45 because he goes when he has an opening. Same thing with Lamb. But, he's not a blazer. While he's tough after the reception, I've seen him get completely stoned and throw down because he's not big.
He's light.
He's just tough.
Yep. I agree with all of that. The only other thing that makes me even pause in the slightest is I do worry about some of these Big 12 receivers sometimes. We see that overall the conference does not play good defensively. There's not a lot of good cornerback prospects coming out. I'm not going to knock him for it, but if I, trying to be nitpicky, that's always something that's like a small yellow flag for all of these Big 12 guys.
Well, Garrett, I worry about Delaware quarterbacks and one won a Super Bowl. So there's that. Let's move on to the next pick here. We have Marvin Eloquent on the clock here. What are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pick number 7. Does anybody feel
6.
that we just left a tier?
Yes.
No.
No. So not for Nick, no. Matt, are we still in a tier for you? Or are we out of a tier for you?
I mean, there's a guy left in the tier for me.
Wonder who that could be. It's like JJ moving on up. Well, Marvin is on the clock here, and we don't know what tier he has this player in, but he does take Cam Akers, running back out of Florida State, 217 pounds, 5'10", ran a 4.47, 122-inch broad jump. The former high school quarterback who got converted to running back and still learned the position is a wild card. He's coming off a year of 231 catches for 1,144 yards and 14 touchdowns, had 30 catches for 225 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. And then anytime you hear about anything about Cam Akers, the first thing you're going to hear about Cam Akers is what, guys?
Offensive line.
Was what? Uglier than this guy. It was terrible, okay? It was his whole team didn't do this guy any favors. Garrett, can you tell us why Cam Akers is a good pick here, though, and the upside that he could bring to your dynasty team?
So I'm the spin guy now. I like that. That's my role. Regardless of how I feel, I'm going to spin this like it's the best pick ever. No, it is a fair pick. There's one player that I would have rather had, but I'm fine with this pick. But overall, Cam Akers is a fantastic athlete, and as great as Jonathan Taylor did at the combine, I think as a overall athlete, I actually think Cam Akers is probably a better athlete than Jonathan Taylor is. He might not be straight line faster, but I think he's a better athlete. And so when you're looking for somebody that, man, I could mold this guy, I could use all of this ability, all of this athleticism, I could mold him into this beautiful artwork of a running back. That's the type of guy that you're looking at. He has the size, he has the build, he's got good speed, much more physical than I think he gets credit for, not because he's huge, but because he kind of launches himself at times. Like, he is not afraid to make contact with defenders. And so he's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde act in the pass protection game. You'll see some reps that are really, really good, and then other reps where he just looks absolutely lost. So I'll leave the negatives to Nick and Matt because I know neither one of them love this player. But those are the positive things about Cam.
I'll back you up a little bit here because, like you mentioned, this is a guy who runs strong. I always like a running back that can get to the outside and run between the tackles, and Cam Akers can do both because he has the speed to get to the outside. You will see him drag a defender here and there as well, so he's not committed just to gap running, or he could be a zone runner as well. Let me ask this. Would anybody have taken Cam Akers ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
As of right now, no.
Me neither. So Marvin, you're demoted as well now on the team. So Nick, can you tell us why maybe this wasn't the greatest pick here and why you could have gone somewhere else? We obviously know guys are on the board here like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but let's not get into that. Just why maybe this isn't such a good pick.
Right. This is going to take a little while because I want to show that I'm biased both ways. Okay. So I'm biased in that in my Devy report, Akers was my number one running back out of high school. Big fan. And he was ranked up there a lot. But the last 2 years, he came down a little bit. And then I'm biased as well because I coached with Florida State's old head coach that got fired and then was there. So I watched Florida State more often, I think, than normal. So I can go both ways there. But I think people talk about his O-line play is it's the biggest cop-out that there is, in my opinion. Because, I mean, I understand it. I mean, there's good O-lines, there's bad O-lines, et cetera. Look at the traits. Because when you look at the traits, it sees through Big 12 corners. It sees through good O-lines, bad O-lines, et cetera. And in those traits, you can see that Cam Akers is still an athlete trying to figure out running back, and he doesn't have it. He doesn't play with confidence.
Absolutely agree with you, by the way.
Doesn't anticipate, poor approach to the line of scrimmage, doesn't have balance to cutting ability. There was one play where finally Florida State schemed up a good play as a counter, and he's one-on-one with a corner, I think, and I think it was B-gap, okay? He's like, I'm going to run over him. He runs over him and trips and falls, and he converted a 3rd and 1 for 4 yards. Congratulations. If he just tried to move a little bit left or right, he would easily have broken the tackle and went like 80 yards. He doesn't have the different nuances to move to get to more advantageous positions, which I think is what some good running backs in this class do, and he doesn't. And I understand if you look at highlights, you see size, you see speed, you see hands, you see highlight plays. You watch game tapes of him, and you're like, I don't know why people are that excited about him. Now, again, I don't have him that far down on my list because he's a talent, but when you want to gamble on a running back and you see guys that have the size, the speed, et cetera, but don't have all of the little things. I see Christine Michael. I see a lot of these backs that never fully developed in the NFL, and I don't want to gamble on them, especially with a high pick.
And I saw a lot of the same things. I think his processing is just a little bit slow behind the line of scrimmage, and it leads to him dancing, and it leads to some of the inconsistencies that Garrett was talking about, even in the pass pro type of game. So for me, I loved your take that he's an athlete trying to still play running back, because that's exactly what I see. A guy that hasn't fully formed into a running back yet. And I mean, after 3 years at the NFL level, I'm not sure that's something that's going to get a lot better at the NFL. I mean, he could get coaching but it's almost like an instinctual thing. You either have it as a running back or you don't. And in my opinion, he just doesn't have it.
Well, and I think about that too. People say, hey, eventually, he still needs to learn the position. How many years do you give a guy? Because it's not like he played only quarterback in high school. When you watch him, he was a running quarterback. He was running. He was figuring it out. He's making these cuts. That's why he got to be the number one running back recruit in the nation. And then he had 3 years at Florida State when you could say there's better recruiting. Well, geez, there's bad quarterback play. Go watch what Brian Edwards had to deal with. I mean, there's good and bad everywhere you go. But, man, you need to worry about your own craft and figure it out. If you haven't figured it out after high school and 3 years of college, how many years do we give him the NFL to sit on our fantasy bench? You know what I mean? That's not good either.
Right, exactly.
And that's why Clyde Edwards-Helaire should have been the pick here, because he's a much safer pick. And we talk about this draft class and how deep it is and how talented it is, where Cam Akers has a first-round grade for myself. And I'm sure, does anybody here not give him a first-round grade in a rookie grade? Anybody do that?
No, he's up in the first round for me.
So we all need running backs, right? It doesn't matter how many running backs you have in your dynasty roster or fantasy roster. We need them. It's a reason why J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor are going high, even though we have talented receivers here like CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy and Justin Jefferson too, at the top of this list. And Cam Akers, I think it's safe to say if we all looked at these top 12 in this first round and you just say, okay, one of these guys is for sure going to bust, pick the guy who it is, most of us are probably like, yeah, it's going to be Cam Akers.
100%. Yep.
And if history tells us anything, more than one of these guys is not going to pan out. So the odds are against Cam Akers, but he does have that athletic ability. I still like him. He's got a first-round grade, but there's no way I would not take him over who Phil Pennington took next here, and that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU, 5'7", 207 pounds, ran a 4.6 40. But don't worry about that because speed's not his game, and it does not need to. He's coming off a year in the most prolific offense we've seen in college football history with 1,415 yards and 16 touchdowns, and also caught 55 balls for 453 yards and a touchdown. This guy is a weapon in the pass game. He's the number one pass catcher running back in this class, and he's a weapon. Matt O'Hara, you got to wait because Nick has not had a lot of chance to be positive here. So, Nick, can you tell us why Clyde Edwards-Helaire here is a great pick?
Well, I'm going to make it higher because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in my first tier of running backs ahead of J.K. Dobbins. That's how much I like him. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire does everything good. I would say very good on the field. Besides, he's not a tall guy. And he doesn't run a fast 40 time, which I don't care about those things because I care about the football player. And he's going to keep his team ahead of the chains. He hides behind blockers really well. He can literally make a guy miss in a phone booth. Some of the things that he did with the football in his hands, I'm like, that's ridiculous. I specifically remember a play against Alabama, which was one of his better games, where it was a third down play where Burrow was rolling out, just dumped it to him on like 3rd and 8. He gets hit at like 4 yards away and spins and twists and pulls and gets the first down. I'm like, that guy's ridiculous because you don't think he has the power, but he's so low to the ground. He has leverage as well. I think he's super quick. I think he understands, as Matt said before, the processing's important because, shout out to one of my friends, Matt Caraccio at Saturday to Sunday Football. He talks about you have to have different tools in your toolbox. And so for someone like Cam Akers, he only has a couple of tools. He doesn't have all of these moves. Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a ton of moves. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can spin, can juke, can jump cut, can, duck. I mean, he's got so many things where a problem will present itself because no play is like another play. They're all different, and he'll defeat the play. And it's so incredible to watch. And that's why I think he's really scheme versatile. I think that he's O-line versatile. It doesn't matter what's in front of him. He's going to be successful. And the trump card, he can really catch the football, which we all loved about Swift. You guys loved about Dobbins. Edwards-Helaire, I think, is the best or second best in this class in catching the football. So I think his floor is going to be 60, 70 type reception seasons. And then the running ability, I think he's in my top tier running backs. I think he's going to be low end RB1, high end RB2 for a lot of years.
Yeah, we mentioned guys like that. When I went back to the beginning of the show, I said a guy like Alvin Kamara coming out, is he the best overall running back in the NFL? No, but he's a fantastic fantasy football running back because of his pass catching ability. And that's what Clyde Edwards-Helaire brings. I thought what I saw on Twitter, one of the best comps I saw towards him was Angelo_fantasy gave him the Brian Westbrook comp. And I thought that was such a beautiful comp on Clyde Edwards. And honestly, I'm with you, Nick. I don't really have anything negative to say about his game besides those simple things of his 40 and his stature. And none of that bothers me. Like Jerry Rice ran a 4.6. The 40 time, it's nice to know people who's fast, but I think we talk about in the Dynasty Nerds podcast all the time, the 40 is better off for eliminating players than instead of bumping players up. So, Matt, do you have anything? Garrett, you got anything you want to chime in about Clyde Edwards that maybe we have missed on this guy?
No, I think you guys pretty much nailed it down. I mean, this guy, he's so loose in the hips, and his lateral agility is amazing. He's like one of these guys that's fun to watch on tape because you like Nick was saying, you can't understand how a person's body can bend like that, and he can make these people miss and drag people along with him, and just a lot of the stuff that he does with his body is very unique. So he's a fun player to watch.
Garret Price?
Yeah, I absolutely love the kid. I think there's a ton of good landing spots for him, and the value of a pass catching running back cannot be overstated. That is how he is going to win you weeks, and that sets his floor so much higher than some other players. If I had to say one concern that I had is he ends up getting drafted to somewhere that doesn't give him the ball a ton in the running game, and so he does end up with more of the Alvin Kamara type role, and it might limit some of his ceiling weeks where he might not be able to get the monster fantasy point totals at times because he only got 7 or 8 carries between the tackles during the course of a game, but he had the 6 or 7 pass catches, which then helped make sure that you still got your 12 or 14 points or whatever.
One team that I've thought of for him that I just think would be like, that's like a fit, and he'll go there and everyone's gonna be like, oh, they'll get all mad. What if he goes to New England and he's James White's replacement?
Totally.
I could see it.
Yeah.
That'd be a fantastic fit. Obviously, everybody's begging for the Bucks, with Tom Brady or even the Chiefs. But let's face it, anybody goes to the Chiefs, we like him. So enough of gushing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let's get down to the nitty gritty here. The next person on the clock here was actually Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And if anybody's been watching this entire podcast, you don't need a set of crystal balls to guess where this pick is going. Because it went Justin Jefferson, wide receiver out of LSU, 6'1", 202 pounds, ran a 4.43 40. Again, we mentioned the most prolific offense we've seen. 111 catches for 1,540 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's the second most touchdowns in college football and the third most receiving yards. And before you get into Matt, I know they mentioned before, Nick was like, oh, well, if you're worried about a slot receiver, yes, Justin Jefferson did play the slot 78% of the snaps according to Pro Football Focus this year. But in 2018, he played a majority of those snaps on the outside. Matt, tell these two fools right now why Justin Jefferson is a fantastic pick here while you're on the clock and why he's your number 2 receiver overall.
Like I was saying earlier with the Jerry Jeudy stuff, obviously he runs out of the slot as well. But what he does that Jerry Jeudy doesn't do is he's not afraid to go over the middle. He's not afraid to come down and make plays in traffic or anything like that. So is he as good of a route runner as Jerry Jeudy? No, but nobody is in this draft class. But he's still a very fine route runner. So it's not a knock saying that he's worse than Jerry Jeudy because he's still really good at it. But what I love is he's such an explosive guy. I mean, obviously they're both very similarly sized. I think Justin Jefferson's about 5 or 10 pounds heavier than Jerry Jeudy and ran a slightly faster 40, but it's the 37-inch vertical. It's the 10 and a half foot broad jump. So he brings an explosive element to the game as well. He's got an uncanny ability to make uncontested catches. I know Garrett's eyes might be rolling in the back.
Contested or uncontested?
I mean, contested catches. Sorry.
I was like, I'm really good at uncontested catches too, for what it's worth.
So is my 8-year-old son. Uncanny ability. But the contested catches, man. And obviously, he's got Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, and it was a very highly prolific offense. But you still got to be able to catch the ball. You still have to be able to go up and get him, where Burrow was putting some of those balls. that's why I saw the dog that I didn't see in Jerry Jeudy. I do see in a player like Justin Jefferson, and with the similarities close enough on the route running, close enough on the size, that I just decided, hey, this is the guy that I'm gonna hitch my wagon to. I like Justin Jefferson. I think he's got the tools to succeed at the next level, even more so than Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy has the tools as well, but I just like Justin Jefferson's game slightly more.
And before we get into the downpour of negativity, I agree. There's all players that we like hitch our wagons to. Mine's still on the board because my guy's Henry Ruggs, and I can't wait till we get to him because I think he's one of the most under. Calm down, Nick. You got all the hate to bottle up here and get to it later. We got plenty of shows up here. But yeah, again, I like Matt's take here. I like Justin Jefferson too. I have Denzel Mims ahead of him, but we mentioned this on Dynasty Nerds podcast where this group of receivers, Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims, T. Higgins, Jalen Reagor, you even throw Brian Edwards in there if you want to. They're all so close to me. So it's like you need to nitpick. And one of the things Matt mentioned too is his route running. There's a lot of little things that Justin Jefferson does that I like those subtle movements he makes in a way he can alternate his speed up in the middle of his routes as well to get that separation. I do like Justin Jefferson a lot. I think we talked about this before where I might view Justin Jefferson as a really good number 2 receiver in NFL. And I don't know if he really will be that number 1. I think he could be, but I think I like him more as a number 2. But in this day, NFL guys, that's not a problem. We can have Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. We can have Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. We can have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. So we can have our cake and eat it too. So there's no problem with having 2 good number 2 receivers on a roster. But that being said, some people don't like Justin Jefferson as much. And we just so happen to be looking at 2 of them. So let's take it to Nick Whalen first. Nick, why is Matt wrong here about Justin Jefferson out of LSU?
How much time do we have?
You got a couple of minutes, Nick. That is it. Because Garrett's got hate to build it, let out too.
My comparison for him, actually, I have listed as poor version of Jerry Jeudy is what I have. You talked about him playing on the outside the year before. And I mean, he only had 875 yards. We're basically looking like Brian Edwards, And so if he's that good at route running and he's that physical at contested receptions, he would have risen up that much more. And that whole team was unbelievable where, you threw out the stats there. He's the second best receiver on the team. And then you also have Terrace Marshall, who had 13 touchdowns on 46 receptions, and Jefferson 18 on 111. So it's like, you can't double him. He's in the slot. I hate how he runs some of his routes. He does this delay. And I remember Michael Crabtree doing it, but he did on the outside where he would just rise up, hesitate, and then he would go and do something. It reminded me of Braxton Miller at the Senior Bowl. You're not going to have that much time in the NFL. You have to be really distinct with your movements, and Jerry Jeudy is. Jefferson does so many hesitations, and you're doing it against linebackers, safeties. I see him opening up his chest, not using his hands with his route running, and he's going to get some really physical corners that are really going to mess him up. And I saw some of that. And so those are some big concerns that I have. I don't hate him. He's probably like my wide receiver 7, I think.
Perfect spot for him.
Yeah, and I don't have him in this huge contested reception area. I have Joe Burrow throwing the ball with the defender with his back to him. Those are easier passes to catch. That's not him rising up and mossing somebody. So, and I also saw Jefferson a little bit more soft over the middle, blocking wise. We saw that in the episode me and Garrett did, Film Nerds. So there's a lot of things there where I just don't see him in this tier. He's not bad. You would say complimentary wide receiver 2, Rich. That's kind of where I have him worded. I think he needs a little bit more development. He has a chance to be a good route runner. He has a chance to do some things, but that hesitation and that works in high school. That might work at LSU when you're facing the second or third best DB. It's not going to work in the NFL.
Still SEC cornerbacks. Garrett, tell us, this is WWE. All of a sudden, Nick is tagging you in. Come on, compound that hate on top of us here.
Bring it in.
Go team. The other part of it with all of this is we have to look at the ceiling of a lot of these players. And when you look at guys like Denzel Mims, when you look at guys like T. Higgins, Jalen Reagor, like there are so many other talented receivers that could morph into that alpha dog receiver. If I'm going to hitch my wagon to a receiver in the first round, I want to be picking a guy that I think can be an alpha dog, especially in this class. I just don't know that Justin Jefferson can. The big argument came on the contested catch stuff. My issue was, he's running from the slot position, so he's going up against backers, safeties, and slot corners. You're not going up against the number 1 guy, often not even the number 2 guy. So yes, he's getting some contested catches, but it's also, typically 4 yards to 10 yards downfield. It's not these 15 yards, 20 yards where they're going up and getting it. So it's much different. So I think that metric is very, very deceiving with the 92%. I still had him as a good grade. I still had him with a 7.5 out of 10. So I still had a good grade on it. It just wasn't the 8.5 that, my top guys had.
I thought we convinced you to get that to an 8 during the podcast.
No. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no. I stood my ground.
He's like an old school guy who ran out the mafia in the 50s on a boat with cement shoes on. He ain't going anywhere.
That's right. I'm sinking, baby. I'm sinking with this shit.
Hold on a second, Rich. I'm watching some Justin Jefferson tape. He just scored another touchdown.
Oh, nice.
Go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
Matt, like a good dog going outside, would you like to lift your leg and douse these guys with anything else before we move on to the next guy?
No, I made all my points. I mean, they had some good counterpoints. No prospect's perfect. That's what we're here to hash out.
And to be fair, between all of you guys, I would fall right in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, I like Justin Jefferson. He's got a first round grade, but he is in that back end, pick 11, pick 12 to me, because he's at the back end. Like, I like 13 guys a lot in this class, because you mentioned Bryan Edwards before, Nick. I have him in that tier as well, so he's my 13th ranked player. But I think the NFL draft will kind of dictate. I'm going to use the NFL draft to dictate some of these guys here in the order I do like them, because what scheme are they playing in and where they're going. And that's why we're going to do another one of these mock drafts for you guys after this one, right after NFL draft, so we can do this all over again and now say, well, not only do I like this player's skill set, but now I like him with this quarterback in this scheme. So let's move on to the next pick.
Hey, real quick, before you do that, just for the record, I would hate to be picking where Matt had to pick in this draft. 8 is a spot that feels yucky to me, because I would much rather be picking at 11, 12, 13, because a lot of these receivers, it's negligible, the difference. I would much rather trade back, pick up the draft capital, and pick at 11, 12, 13. So
or move up.
For the record. Or move up. Yeah, I'd have no problem moving up as well.
I would say I love that advice. If you're if you like 3 of these guys, take that opportunity and move back a couple spots in this draft class. Maybe somebody loves somebody so much, like Matt loves Justin Jefferson. Maybe you can get their second, because they're like, hey, that's pick 2-8, 2-9, 2-11, which is going to be a really good pick in this draft class. You can get a guy like Anthony McFarland, maybe Tua or Zach Moss there, and just move back. Because even if you get a third here, in this year's draft class, you can add a very good quality tight end prospect in this third round this year, where this receiving class is going to push all that talent back, or even a running back up, like or a receiver like Devin Duvernay, or running back maybe possibly like Antonio Gibson. So I love that advice, Garrett. If you're in a mixed bag here and you like multiple guys, move back a little bit, pick up a little draft capital, because for the second and third round, there's going to be some good options. Next on the clock here, we have Nick Whalen on the clock in this rookie mock draft, and he takes a guy who I absolutely love. He's my 4th receiver on my board, and that's Denzel Mims out of Baylor, 6'3", 207 pounds, ran a 4.38 40. This guy can move, and on top of that, he ran a 6.663 cone to show how loose those hips. So like we mentioned salsa dancing earlier, this guy's going to get down and he's going to lead you all the way to the ball. That's the best 3-cone score at the combine, on top of a 131-inch broad jump. Coming off a year of 66 receptions, 1,020 yards, and 12 touchdowns. You're talking about high upside, like Garrett mentioned a little bit earlier, about hitching your wagon to a guy could be a true number 1. Nick, tell us why Denzel Mims could be that guy for your dynasty roster.
Yeah, I have met wide receiver 3. I really like Mims's film. That's the thing, is like, I'm not a combine guy. People know that. But I mean, like, if we're comparing him to like Jefferson, he beat him in every category, and he's bigger, and he played on the outside, so like those are all things that I would like more, because you can always move a guy inside, I feel like, and get those matchups, but winning outside, and he was a marked guy. I mean, when they needed a play, they were going to Mims, and he did it 2 years at Baylor too. He had 2 different 1,000-yard seasons. I know he played all 4 years. That's a negative in some people's eyes, but I like seeing multiple years of production. I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not do that. I know, some of those guys didn't. I like to see that. But Mims has all of the traits that I like. I like how he uses his hands. He can be physical. He stacks corners, because he can just go by him with his release, and then he stacks them, and then it's a 2-way go, and then you're in no man's land. He can win contested. He's not great after the reception, but I don't think you always have to be, especially when you're on the outside and you have that athletic ability. You just kind of go and get what you can. You're not going to be great at everything on the field. But I was really impressed with this film. The one thing I didn't like is I didn't always see effort from him. And there's some things that I think he looked too quickly once he would stack or get into his route, that I think if he would take a couple more steps and then look, he would get more separation than he already does. So to me, I think there's a little bit more even potential than I already see. But man, I see a great prospect that I don't think people are that as high on right now. I don't know why.
It's weird. I'm with you on that aspect, Nick. Like some people, I think Denzel Mims is going to go in the back end of a lot of first rounds like this. And I think he's going to be one of the best values. Like I have 112 in a league and I'm just praying that Denzel, like he's the guy out of all these guys that I'm praying falls to me, because I have him as my fourth receiver. You have him as your third receiver. I love his upside. I love that the way he's able to go up and make that acrobatic catch and come down with the ball. And I know it's kind of a cheap comparison, but we mentioned this before, of another receiver out of Baylor. He does remind me a little bit of Josh Gordon. You know,
that's my comp.
That's my comp as well. I've been saying it from day one. So I like this Denzel Mims pick. Garrett, you've been super negative this whole show. How about you be a little bit more negative here and talk about Denzel Mims?
Why do I got to be the negative guy?
Dude, it's just written all over your face.
Oh, my
because I made the pick. That's why I can't be negative. I made the pick.
Well, here's the biggest reason.
Do you want Matt to hate on him? Do you want Matt to do it?
No,
I don't hate this guy.
I'll be the meanie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll be the meanie.
Trying to give you a voice here, Garrett, to the people.
I mean, the biggest reason is because Nick likes him. I mean, if Nick likes him, you probably shouldn't draft him. No, if there is some concerns with Denzel Mims, you're absolutely right. There is some concerns about his effort at times. Also, he had a very high drop rate overall. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with more concentration more than anything else, but it is concerning at times. Anytime anyone gets at or above 10%, that's a pretty hefty number of passes to be dropped. And so you have to wonder sometimes where is his head at? Is he trying to, because he's not a great after the catch guy, is he trying to already think about that next step of what he's going to do? He is another Big 12 guy. Like I said, it's a yellow flag. It doesn't move anyone. It's just something I keep in the back of my mind with some of this stuff, and Baylor has a tendency to have inflated numbers. Now, it's not Art's system anymore. It's a different system than it was with Art. And so it's not exactly the same, but we've seen this happen before where we have Baylor players with, very inflated numbers, and it's hard to see if that always is going to translate into the NFL. But if I can be my true self for like 1 second, I freaking love Mims, and he's a stud. Okay, continue.
Okay, hold on. The Big 12 thing, that's a thing for you? I mean, you got, Crabtree and Welker and Dez and Justin Blackman and Jordy and Tyler Lockett. I mean, there's a lot of good Big 12 receivers.
I mean, none of those guys you named were like great receivers for like 2 seasons.
Dude, you can't do stuff like that. Who cares about that? You got to take each player individually.
I do.
There's 2
I
Eastern
do.
Illinois
You made me be negative.
in there.
You forced this on me.
And Garrett,
you pushed yourself on me, Rich.
Garrett, get Rich off you for just 1 second. Did you guys read the report that he also had a broken hand that he was playing through for 2019? So that could go.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that could go a long way.
I retweeted it with those little. I don't really do emojis too often, but I did a retweet with the stock market going up. But I think in all our eyes, this is a guy we do like. He's Nick's number 3. He's my number 4. Garrett, where do you have him? 4. Matt, where do you have him?
I think I have him at 6, but
Matt should have been the negative guy.
You're right.
He has room to jump up a little bit here as well. I think he actually has been creeping up slowly but surely at this point. So,
ooh, look at you! Put on some TLC in the background, and we'll just creep on up in here. Yeah, I'm liking it. Next on the clock is Michael Bauer, and he selects T. Higgins out of Clemson, 6'4", 216 pounds. At his pro day, he ran a 4.54, coming off a year of 59 catches for 1,167 yards and 13 touchdowns. This is a guy who played all receiving position, goes up and gets the ball very good, has some good hands, good body control, 81-inch wingspan, very confident route runner. Not overly physical. His routes are okay, but when I watch T. Higgins tape, guys, I want you guys to help me out here. There's nothing I hate. There's nothing I hate about T. Higgins tape. I think he's a very competent NFL receiver. If T. Higgins turned out 3 years from now, 5 years from now to be like a wide receiver one consistently, it wouldn't shock me. But I still have him a little bit lower down my boards because I'm shooting for that upside of Denzel Mims, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs. And that's when I get to T. Higgins. So who wants to chime in on some T. Higgins love here? Matt?
Nick, I know you're a big fan. I was actually kind of surprised you didn't take him.
Who's that, me?
Well,
Nick.
Oh, Nick's a big fan of T. Higgins. Okay,
Nick's a big fan of T. Higgins.
Nick Higgins, because we know why Matt didn't take him, because Justin Jefferson was on the board. Come on, Garrett. Okay, you can't fight love. All right, it's an unbreakable bond. Okay, Nick.
Unbreakable or unbreakable, either one.
All the above. That's how good it is. It's unbreakable, unbreakable, unbreakable. Yep, we're there. Nick,
Rich uses them all. It's fine.
I'm all up in there. Nick, what kind of bond do you have with T. Higgins? Tell the audience today why this pick, this late, is such a romantic move that they could be in love with for the foreseeable future.
I mean, there are times where I picture me and him holding hands and skipping through, the daisies and the patches, because he's my wide receiver 4, and we did one of the episodes on him. I don't know if Garrett was a part of that one or not, but
I wasn't on that one.
That was okay. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think the way he uses his feet and his hands in coordination for a big guy is really good, and he has the knowledge. That's the other thing. There are guys that don't have a plan for how they're going to create some separation, and especially when you're big and he doesn't have the athleticism. He does, the high end, quick twitch, whatever. He was as a plan. I mean, I think he's better than Mike Williams was coming out for sure. And so when you're thinking of he's a wide receiver too, I think he has a better upside for sure. I like his ball skills. I think that he's got a little bit of that dog in him after the reception too, where he wants the ball and he wants to get some extra yardage. Last year, 2018, how the season ended, Justin Ross got all the noise. He got all the hype. And I think Higgins like, all right, I'm going to put in some work. And Justin Ross isn't even a top end Devy guy right now. He's like a mid first. And all that's because Higgins is like, okay, this is my team. This is my passing offense. I'm going to get everything. And he bodies guys out. I think there's a lot that he does, but what he isn't, he's not flashy. And that's what the community chases more, I think, than fundamentals, which I think is what Higgins as well. And I think Higgins is going to get more points and you're going to get more to value than some other guys that are flashy, like Reagor, like Jefferson. Sorry. Like they're more flashy. You know what I mean? Look at all these moves and stuff. He's not. He's just going to get his job done and make the reception.
He's like one of those guys that's going to be kind of like an underappreciated Jarvis Landry, right? Always like it could be a sneaky high-end wide receiver 2, couple of years back end wide receiver 1, and just consistently consistent. Does anybody here want to kind of talk down T. Higgins a little bit, or maybe say buyer beware maybe on this?
I don't want to talk him down. I just want to piggyback on on what Nick was saying, because I had a lot of the same notes. I really liked his ability to get off the line. He uses a nice little combination of quickness and, like you were saying, his hands. I wrote it, that he uses almost like a swim move. But what I meant by that was that he uses his hand pretty effectively. And then his ability to shield defenders away with his body and like really present his numbers to the quarterback on little things like quick slants or anything like that. I just really like that ability that he shows, and I think he's big enough and he's got enough athleticism that he could be a wide receiver 1 for a team and be that outside guy. So I really do like T. Higgins. I have him, I think, right now above Denzel Mims. So he's my number 5 wide receiver, with room to probably go up 1 and be number 4, depending on where he lands.
Yeah, where Cam Akers, we said, is a big risk here, I feel like T. Higgins is a very safe pick. And we're again here, what are we at? Pick number 10?
10.
You just missed a championship game here then in your playoff, so you're just out of it, right? And you won the 3rd place, so you finished in 3rd place, and you're getting a guy like T. Higgins to add to your roster. That's a difference maker to get you to that next level in Dynasty. This is the kind of guy that, if you're in like the high end of the first, like second round, this is where if you have picked 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, you don't want to just be satisfied with those guys here. This is where you want to start trying to make some moves and go with capital to come away with a guy like T. Higgins here to go with your Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb, because these guys are difference makers. Of course, years down the line or a year later, you'd be like, oh, yeah, at the back end, I got Michael Thomas as the fourth receiver off the board, and look at him now. But when you're on the clock, you're not like, yeah, I got Michael Thomas. This year at 11, you're like, I got T. Higgins. Look at me. Championship in 2020. So
well, that's because he was the bad Michael Thomas back then. Remember that?
No, I did not remember that. I actually liked Michael Thomas's upside.
No, I like both of them, but remember there was two. So it was like there's the good Mike Thomas, and the good one. And
I do remember the bad Michael Thomas. Yes, you had the Rams Michael Thomas, who right now is out of work because they closed down the restaurants, and then there's the number one receiver in all of football. So let's move on to the next pick here. It was Garret Price on the clock. He selects Jalen Reagor out of TCU, 5'11", 206 pounds, ran a 4.47 40, a 7.313 cone. Coming up a year of 43 receptions for 611 yards and 5 touchdowns. Garret, we're going to let you sit here and talk about why you made this pick, why you like the pick, and then I'm going to let Matt come in here and just tear you apart and tell you why it's a terrible pick. So go ahead and tell us why you like Jalen Reagor here.
No, I was actually very excited to get Jalen Reagor here because when I came away doing my grade sheet before the draft, we call it our nerd score, but we each have our own individual tape score. My score for Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Reagor, and Denzel Mims came away almost identical. Like they are all extremely, extremely close. So, they kind of form that next tier after CeeDee Lamb for me. So for me to be able to get them all the way down at 11, I was really, really excited about that. The thing with Jalen Reagor is there will be some people in your drafts, if they're not paying attention and all they do is look at the box scores and the stat sheets, they're going to say like, I'm not taking Jalen Reagor in the first round. Dude only had 600 something yards. Like, why would I take Jalen Reagor there? But when you turn on the tape and you watch the tape, dude is arguably the most explosive player in this class. The ability to be able to create after the catch is absolutely special. In his sophomore year, he had this play. I want to say it was against Kansas, where I swore he probably broke 12 tackles over the course of this run, which is hilarious because there's only 11 players. So he broke one twice somewhere. He's that talented in the open field. He's a kick returner. But for a guy that's not huge, as far as in height, he is very good at going up and getting the ball. Very much so a my ball mentality, can make those circus catch, can make those highlight catches. And so overall, he has a very complete game as a wide receiver. And he's also got the mentality. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit at the combine, and he was one of the players that was arguably the most chippy out of all of them. He was very intense, very focused, very almost anger was building up as he was talking, because I just think he's such a competitor that I think he is just going to explode at the next level. And he could end up being, I've heard some evaluators say that he's arguably the most talented receiver in the class. And so I'm excited to get him at pick 11 here.
Matt, tell Garret why he just made a bad selection here over some other players on the board. Okay, maybe not a bad selection here at 111. This is a good pick, actually. But at
111, it's not a bad play.
It's a good pick. But tell Matt, tell them why you have Jalen Reagor on the back end of all these receivers here that we're talking about.
It's just a consistency thing with him. I mean, there was times when I watched his game and it was almost like if the play wasn't going to him, he was kind of dogging it a little bit. I know that somebody else mentioned that about another guy, but it was his get off on some plays. Even if he was running pass routes that, the play was obviously going to somebody else, you could tell he was tipping his hand that it wasn't going to him. Just off his release from the line, I could tell whether the play was designed to go to him or not. So it was one of those things where there's nitpicky things. I think he's a really good straight line athlete. I think he's got some moves in the open field, and he can turn some short passes into punt return type of things. And there are explosive big plays there. There's something to me that I can't nail down. And you said he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got an attitude. I feel like there was plays where I saw him dog it a little bit, and I can't nail him down quite yet. I'm going to do some more study before all this is said and done in the next week, and really have it figured out. He's coming up on our next episode, our podcast. So I have a few more days to kind of figure it out, but at 11, I'm totally fine with it. It's the people that have him pumped way up and they have him as their number 3 wide receiver that I'm going to have issues.
Yeah, I'm actually with Matt there as well. I like Jalen Reagor. I think he's a very talented player. I would love him in a system like the Saints. but I would definitely take guys like T. Higgins ahead of him. I would take Denzel Mims ahead of him. I would take Henry Ruggs ahead of him. I would take Jerry Jeudy ahead of him. I would take CeeDee Lamb ahead of him. So I'm with Matt on that as well. Nick, I know you like Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, I just want to talk about some negatives because Garrett took him and he doesn't know what the heck he's doing. Yeah, I agree with what Matt's saying. I mean, there's some of that. Sometimes I don't know because I know Baylor used to run a system where they would only have half the guys run the routes and the other half of the field would just save their energy. I don't know if that was going on, but yeah, I don't think that Reagor completes his routes. I think that there's some accelerating out of breaks that he just doesn't do because I think he's good enough, and that's not going to work in the NFL. I think he tests poorly. He's better on the field athletically for sure, but he drops passes. That's also another thing. And I see him not coming down with some contested receptions because he does rise up. He's got a little bit of that Steve Smith in him where he's got some dog and he plays bigger than his size. But Steve Smith came down with some of his contested receptions or going to the ground, and Reagor didn't either. So there are some negatives too. I'm not going to fault him for numbers because that passing attack was just horrendous.
Terrible.
Yeah, and this Reagor falls into me. I'm kind of with Matt. Like, if you go back a month ago, because we're going to debate here too. I've been saying forever. People are like, "Oh, it was really the Reagor versus Ruggs debate, right?" Because they were supposed to be both super fast, and I was like, "Oh, Henry Ruggs, no doubt for me." But like Matt said, some people had Jalen Reagor as high as their number 3. I've seen him as people's number 1 overall receiver. You know who you people are out there. You love them that much. You know what I mean? And for me, I just didn't get it. And that's fine because he could prove me wrong. But Reagor comes away with me kind of players. I think he's really good. But when I get him at the back end of the first round, it's like, oh, man, I was so close to getting T. Higgins. I was so close to getting Denzel Mims. And like I told Nick earlier, it's like at 112, I'm just hoping people do like Reagor more. So Mims does fall to me at 12, and that's where we're at. So let's get to the end of this draft here so we can wrap this bad boy up. Michael Collins was on the clock, and he takes Henry Ruggs. And this to me is the best value. This is my number 3 receiver. I don't like Henry Ruggs. I love Henry Ruggs. Out of Alabama, 5'11", 188 pounds, ran a 4.27 40. That's kind of fast. A 42-inch vertical, a 131-inch broad jump, 40 catches, 746 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 2 rushes for 75 yards and a touchdown. 3rd all-time in receiving touchdowns at Alabama. This is a guy who is a playmaker. His speed is upper echelon. He can work on all levels of the field. And what I love about him is when you see a lot of these guys, like these super fast guys, they play like Jerry Jeudy a lot of time. They don't want contact. They want to get out of the way. They're alligator arming it. Not Henry Ruggs. He actually plays physical for size. He's only 5'11", 180 pounds, but he plays physical. He'll lower his shoulder on you. This is a guy who has fantastic hands as well. We see a lot of these speed guys, and their hands are not that good. They're really fast, but they can't catch the football, where Henry Ruggs is fantastic. According to Pro Football Focus, he only had 3 drops on 123 targets. And on top of that, this is a guy with the ability to go out and extend for the football. He's got good ups. He high points the football. He's a diverse route runner. I actually, if you look at his route chart, according to Pro Football Focus too, he's very diversified in that, where he ran a ton of routes. This guy could play the slot. He could play outside. He's going to change his tempo, his speed. He's an overall playmaker. This is a guy, to me, who has good body control, could be the next Tyreek Hill in the NFL, because once you get the ball in his hands, he can make plays. And that's fine. You can say he's not physical, and I understand. Some people are going to disagree with this pick. 2 of you, maybe 3 of you are going to disagree with this pick. But I'm telling you what. Matt was talking about you want to put your stamp on somebody, and I love my history of the guys I put my stamp on, and I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I'm putting my stamp on Henry Ruggs as my number 3 overall player, and I'm taking him as high as right around 1.6, 1.7 in rookie drafts. So if I'm sitting at 112 like Mike is here and Henry Ruggs falls to me, I'm going to be that guy in your draft that's super annoying, cheering, jumping up and down, telling you how you guys are all chumps. I won the league last year. I'm winning again for sure now this year, and I got the next Tyreek Hill on my roster. I love me some Henry Ruggs. He's going to be one of the first wide receivers taken in the NFL draft, and he should be one of the first wide receivers you take in your dynasty draft. All right, Nick. All right, Garrett. Go ahead. Let me have it. Tell me why I'm wrong so I can just go ahead and listen to why you're wrong. And all our YouTube audience could say, wow, Nick and Garret are so negative. And Rich is right. They're wrong. Garret, you go first because you have been the most negative all night.
All right. Yeah. I wasn't put in a corner.
Go ahead, baby.
All right. So this one's from the heart though. So this one, there's a little more oomph. So here's the thing. One of the things I hear often is Henry Ruggs with, the yards after the catch. Okay. Henry Ruggs is not very good after the catch. He is very fast, which is a plus.
Fair.
It is good to be fast. But he was also a punt returner and kick returner. Didn't have a single one return for a touchdown. If he was so good after the catch, so good in the open field, he would have taken one of those back with his 4.2 something speed. So he's not very good after the catch. He's not very elusive. And that's the biggest difference between him and Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill will make people miss. Ruggs is just going to outrun you. He's not going to make people miss. So at the NFL level, yes, he has still got elite track speed, and that will help him on explosive plays. But we have to remember, this is fantasy football. To me, he is a much better real life player than fantasy football player because he will have weeks where he gets you 2 touchdowns and 180 yards on 4 catches. But he's also going to have those weeks where he just doesn't put up anything. And you're not going to get the consistency that you're going to be getting out of T. Higgins, that you're going to be getting out of Denzel Mims. You're not going to be getting that type of consistency out of him. I don't think he's that good of a contested catch player. There was a lot of times over the middle where he wouldn't make plays. So overall, I do want to come back to the point of this is a very deep class. In other classes, he would be higher, but he's my wide receiver 8 in this class.
Oh my God, Garret, I got to stop you because you have too much nonsense coming out of your mouth. Go ahead. Let's get the tag team back again. Let's tag in your other negative Nancy partner over here, Nick Whalen. Go ahead and pile on top of me and tell me why Henry Ruggs is just not going to cut it as a dynasty player.
Like a true corner, man. The round one was in there. I feel like Garret can go back out there and then maybe I can come in around 3. I think you swung a little too high. You could go to the body a little bit more, Garret. Okay. I got you a little water, right? All right, get back in there. You got some more in you. Come on. Corner man.
This is all you. I said my piece. I'm getting a little hot. I'm wearing this hoodie now. So,
you said it was from the heart. That's all. Like, come on. I mean, Rocky would go out there for another round. Is what I'm saying.
Stuff. I don't know. Is there a little bit?
Nice.
It is a little bit.
I like that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Little gamer sweat.
Nick, you rolled up your sleeves. You're gonna already have to get out the iron later. Let's go ahead and let's go put the use. What don't you like that Garret hasn't said about Henry Ruggs? Like what are you telling me that I'm an idiot for?
I'll be honest. The only thing that's good about Henry Ruggs is he's fast. He talked about the elusiveness. I don't see that. I don't see crisp routes. He gets rerouted and pushed around by physical corners. He doesn't use his hands during his route running, which makes him easier to get rerouted. He will dip his shoulder a little bit, but all those things off the line at the second level, and for a guy that's fast, I mean, he should be going by more people with his route running. I just don't think that he's aggressive. While he can catch some passes, outside of his frame, I don't think he's aggressive enough to high point consistently, not at the next level. And as Garret said, I mean, the punt returning for touchdowns and after the reception, I mean, honestly, he's more similar to Paris Campbell than he's different. And I was not a Paris Campbell fan. I think in the NFL, he'll succeed more at like being in a role, not as a player, in a role as like a DK Metcalf, where he's going to run straight. He's going to run a post, maybe a cross. And that's about it, because anything else that's more complicated, he doesn't get out of his breaks quick enough or physical enough to be successful within an offense.
I didn't use the word elusiveness, by the way, guys. I made sure I didn't, and I know he does. If you ask me his cons he's not as elusive with the ball in his hands, and he does have some issues with some physical corners out there. So it is somewhat of a negative on him, but hey, we got negatives on all these players. Matt, can you back me up a little bit on Henry Ruggs, or are you just not a fan either?
I'm kind of in between on him as well.
Okay. Well, this in between this way.
You want me to tween your way? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Right. It's like, just imagine like your 13th birthday is right around the corner. Let's do it.
Don't get demoted. A lot of people.
Yeah, you're right. I could get demoted right now on our first YouTube.
I'll start introducing Garret second on the pod.
Dang it. No, I mean, I think you guys nailed it. His best attribute is obviously his speed. This is one of those things where if he develops a little bit more, if he becomes a better route runner, I think the sky's the limit with this guy. The Tyreek Hill is, obviously is the type of player he could be if he was a better route runner. Because Tyreek Hill, I think, is way underrated in that respect. And if I don't think he's ever going to be as elusive as Tyreek Hill. So I mean, I guess that's kind of out the window. But you can't teach the kind of speed that he has. So he pops off the game. He pops off the film immediately as a big play threat. Anytime he touches the ball, it could be a screen pass, it could be a drag route, it could be anything. If he catches a lane, he can take that thing 80 yards. I think Garrett alluded to that. What you're going to have to nail down is, and what I'm really waiting for my final analysis is, where he lands. What kind of offense is he in? Is he going to have somebody that's going to get him open enough and have lanes in the secondary where he's going to be able to make these big plays? If he's in an offense that's creative and has a great mind, an Andy Reid type of guy, something like that, obviously he's not going to end up with the Chiefs, but somebody like that from his tree, perhaps, I'll be excited. A Kyle Shanahan offense would be amazing, because I trust those guys to be able to use a weapon like that, down in New Orleans, if he's there. I mean, all those would be amazing landing spots where I would get really excited about Henry Ruggs. Where he's being connected up with like the Jets, that's not gonna excite me at all.
No, the Jets.
I
will say that the Jets would hurt me a little bit. You see
the
the
Raiders
number
probably would too.
The number one, the Raiders wouldn't be as exciting, but the number one place you do see him getting mocked to right now is the Broncos, which I would be excited with offsetting Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant. But we're going to do another show to talk about that, so there's no need to speculate here. We're just talking off college talent. But I agree exactly with what Matt's saying. I understand what Matt's saying. I completely disagree with Nick. I disagree with Garrett. I am a big Henry Ruggs fan. I am a believer. You can, and again, this is weird for me because I'm usually the guy. If you've been listening to the Dynasty Nerds podcast the last 6 years, I'm usually the anti-speed guy. Like I hate the John Rosses.
You almost said Justin Jefferson. You almost said it.
I don't.
It's in your heart.
You guys are just spewing all this negativity out there. It's like penetrating me through the camera. Like the Will Fullers, guys like that. It's just I see something completely different here at Henry Ruggs. So I am a fan here, and that wraps up the first round of this mock draft. It's going to change because the NFL Draft 2020 is this week. We'll do another mock draft after the draft. We'll actually do 2 rounds and get 2 more videos out there. Make sure you do hit the like and subscribe button below to make sure you can catch up on all these Dynasty videos that we have coming out, all this Dynasty content we'll have coming out all summer of 2020. We got Evan Silva coming up on our next show of EstablisherRun.com to give you some of our Dynasty sleepers for 2020. So stay tuned for that. Much more content to come. In the meantime, we do have the NFL Draft coming. In the meantime, too, if you want to talk to us on Twitter, I'm at Dynasty Rich on Twitter.
I'm at Dynasty Matt.
Nick?
Oh, at _ Nick Whalen.
Garrett?
And I am at Dynasty Price.
And of course, you can follow the site at Dynasty Nerds for all the Dynasty content. Check out DynastyNerds.com and get a chance today to join the Nerd Herd for all our exclusive rankings and tools that we offer there to help you be a better Dynasty player. Until then, we'll see you guys next episode. Thanks for listening.